And I believe we are live.
Hey.
Hey, welcome to the Magicians Gone Wild Very First podcast. So we're going to be starting off this podcast. We're going to do it regularly enough, hopefully, at least if people care to come watch. So for those of you who don't know us, my name is David Peace. This is Steve Spade. So we're going to start off with, I guess, just telling us a bit about who we are. If you can hear cars going past, sorry, we're like everywhere else in lockdown sitting at home. So Steve, why don't you tell people about who you are, what you do, and that sort of stuff.
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Steve Spade. I'm a magician, illusionist, escape artist, and I'm dubbed Ireland's Houdini because I do underwater escapes, straitjacket escapes. I occasionally try to blow myself up, and I haven't. It hasn't failed yet. I've been doing magic all my life, doing magic since I was a kid. I've been lucky enough to work with some magic consultants from across the seas in the States, like Morgan Strepler and a few others. And Morgan obviously had worked with David Blaine and Chris Angel and other people like that. We're hoping actually to have Morgan on the show and a few other surprise guests in the next few weeks as well, which is going to be great. And we put out some feelers to some magicians already, and the feedback we've been getting is amazing. So I'm really excited about the podcast, and we're just going to try to fill a void really, because there isn't really a podcast like this in Ireland, and I think it'd be great just to kind of shine a light in it. So yeah, that's me. That's what I do, and you can check out everything that I do on www.stevespademagic.com or houdini.ie. Back to you, Dave.
Great, lovely intro. For people who don't know, my name is David Peace. I'm a magician and mentalist from Ireland as well. davidpeacemagic.ie if you want to learn any more information about that. I mainly do mentalism now. I've started a bit of everything. I've worked with Steve on some of his stunts, consulting on them to make sure he doesn't kill himself when he tries. I've also successfully predicted the World Cup, even put a bet on, which I know is a bit immoral, but you know what are you going to do? I had to get some winnings out of it. Like, if you know who's going to win the World Cup, you might as well place a bet. So that's me. I've been doing magic since I was a kid. It's always been said, magic isn't something that you get into, it gets into you. It's an obsession. My wife has to put up with all the magic stuff that's everywhere in the house, which I think any magician watching that can relate to. And yeah, so today's episode, we're going to be going over some of our favorite movies that have magicians in them or revolve around magicians. And also we'll be just going over some other things that have come up. If there's any questions from people who are watching, you can shoot them in and we'll be able to see them. And then also we'll be doing our segment that we're going to get all our guests to do going forward, which is the good, the bad, and the ugly of magic. So that's what we're going to be doing there going forward. So to start off, I guess we might as well start talking about the movies. You posted something earlier on Facebook, Steve, about The Prestige, because I think it's now on Netflix, which hasn't been before. So
right with that, I don't know.
Why don't you tell people like why you love The Prestige so much?
Yeah, I mean, The Prestige, once again.
Stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated. Stay hydrated, people. We're not sponsored by anyone, but thanks, Ballygum. Cheers.
Definitely not by Irish Water anyway.
Yeah, we're just a fan. They're not a sponsor. But yeah, The Prestige. I watched it again a few months ago, and then last night I watched it again, and it was just, every time you watch it, you take something away from it. I think Christopher Nolan just hit the nail on the head with like the perfect movie, really. Even if it wasn't about magic or whatever, it's such a good story of that kind of rivalry type thing. It's just a brilliant movie, and it's really captivating. And I think I like it because it just has that kind of periodic kind of piece to that kind of Victorian style. It's just a movie, and it really does kind of draw you in. And every time you watch it, you kind of, there's little bits that you kind of forget or you miss or little things. So I love that method of storytelling that he has. It's just brilliant, and it also just looks great. It's shot beautifully. Like it's a perfect movie.
It's Christopher Nolan, like, you know, you can't go wrong with the guy who did The Dark Knight or Memento or Inception. Oh, like, he's just an incredible storyteller. I remember when it first came out, somebody asked me what the movie was about, and I said it's Wolverine versus Batman, and they were like, "What?" They were quite disappointed after watching it with Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale. But we might touch on some spoilers when we're talking about The Prestige, because it's hard not to when you're talking about it. So if you haven't seen The Prestige, basically go watch The Prestige. I think it's probably Christopher Nolan's most underrated movie, and I've heard a few people say that. So hopefully that means it's like starting to pick up and is a bit more popular. But it's like
it's a great book
the actual but the actual movie itself is a magic trick.
Yeah,
so
absolutely,
like,
and it has a start, middle, and end. And obviously, for people, the opening credits with Michael Caine speaking about it, he explains what The Prestige kind of is in the opening line, and that will set you up for the whole movie if you just listen to exactly what he says there, which is brilliant. But that's the amazing part of the storytelling in it. I mean, obviously, it was a fantastic book from Christopher Priest, I think it is, originally, and then it just a brilliant screenplay and then an unreal film. And I love the cameo from David Bowie. I forgot all about that.
He's so good as Tesla.
Yeah.
Because Tesla's quite a mysterious character as well, so he fits in really nicely in that, like, he would be the type of guy who'd be inventing stuff so magicians can do real magic. You know, it's like perfect, and David Bowie as well is the perfect guy to play that sort of a person. Yeah,
it doesn't even seem like it's David Bowie. It seems more like it's actually Tesla. And even that opening scene when you see him, and we don't want to ruin it for people with the top hats or the multiplying top hats.
Yeah.
And it just sets that whole picture of that era of mystery. Because
Andy Serkis is really good in it as well. It's cool seeing Andy Serkis not doing like motion capture stuff. It's actually Andy Serkis being Andy Serkis. Like, he's not Gollum. He's just like Tesla's assistant, which is great.
Yes, and he's brilliant. Yeah, I love that scene with the "What do I have in my hand?" and as he's walking away, and he's like, "Your pocket watch" or whatever. No, it's just a great movie, and every time it's one of those movies you can put on, but you're not gonna like sway. You know, you can put on a movie and then kind of half watch it kind of thing. You can't do that with The Prestige. Doesn't matter how many times you've seen it, you still end up watching it, right through.
Yeah, I remember I was showing it to my wife Hillary before, and usually when a movie's on, she checks her phone and like might fall asleep and then wake up, and I'm like, no, not this movie. You will have no idea what's going on. That's, I think, with any Christopher Nolan movie, you just like, it's not something you can just have on in the background while you're relaxing. It's more of an active, you'd be actively watching it rather than just passively sitting back and enjoying the movie. But
the whole movie feels like you're watching a theatrical performance from start to finish. It might as well be a play or anything else. It doesn't really have just a kind of a like we said, just kind of a background movie kind of a feel. It feels like you're actually seeing a full theatrical performance during it. I mean, obviously the actors are fantastic, and Scarlett Johansson and everything. I mean, the cast.
Yeah, I completely forgot she was in it until I saw the poster again when it showed up. I was like, oh my god, Scarlett Johansson is in this movie. Completely forgot.
It's perfectly casted. It's we're not just saying it because obviously we're magicians and we like that whole genre anyway, but it's actually a brilliant movie. You can make it about two rival race car drivers, and it would still be a fantastic film.
Yeah, it's basically Talladega Nights, but for magicians.
yeah.
Or Step Brothers for magicians.
Yeah, exactly.
I find what I always find amazing about it as well is that, like, I just think when you rewatch it, like there is a twist in the movie, not to give anything away, and it catches you completely off guard. You're not expecting it in any way, shape, or form the first time you watch it. But then when you watch it more times, it's like so obvious. Like they're like little hints that are there throughout the movie. And every time I watched it, as you were saying, I picked up something new every single time. It's like it's my favorite movie, like, of any movie. It's like the go to. It's that and Star Wars, but I usually just go with that is like my favorite movie. If I had to watch a movie, I'd throw on The Prestige.
Yeah, exactly. And another kind of an unsung one is The Illusionist with Edward Norton.
Yeah, that they came out without like a month of each other. It's kind of like Hollywood does that sometimes with like Armageddon and Deep Impact. And there was like The Prestige and The Illusionist by two different studios released, like, I think 1 month apart from each other. And I always think The Illusionist is in the shadow of The Prestige a lot. Yeah. And I remember because I watched it after I'd seen The Prestige, and I was like, after watched it a couple more times since, and I'm like, it's absolutely incredible movie. Like, Edward Norton's so great in it as well. And some of the magic that's in it, like the orange tree. It's for people who don't know the orange tree illusion, it's something that is like a holy grail of magic. It's described in an old book that someone did it, but nobody believes that it could actually have been done the way it was done. But they kind of show it on the screen in its like as it would have been, which is just so good to see. Like, it's
no, it's definitely because they came out like that so close. It was only like that, like 5 weeks or something like that, and one definitely overshadowed the other. And I think just because the cast was so big in the Prestige, it did overshadow that. But the Illusionist, when you watch it back, there's great little twist in it, and you as well, you feel like you're watching a magic trick from the start to the finish, and there is that whole element of like it kind of through the magician's eyes, kind of a premise with it, or through the illusionist's eyes in this case. But even that bit when he does the trick where the guess the hand effect, and then kind of reveals it as well to kind of get the detective off his scent kind of thing. It's just a great movie. Another great movie, especially during lockdown. Just dig out these movies and watch them. They're good kind of I mean, they're good 2 hours long each, I'd say, give or take.
At least.
They're good solid movies, so definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, the thing what I always find with the Illusionist as well is I like that it kind of goes into the spiritualist side, and where it's like the magic is almost becoming too real and it's scaring the like higher ups, because you could see that like that used to happen in old times where the leader would always have his magician to his side to make sure that the people who saw this guy doing incredibly magic knew that he was with the Sultan or the Emperor or whoever happened to be the Pharaoh who was in charge. So, and it's like, if you don't fall in line and you're doing this stuff that makes people believe that you're more powerful than the leader, you have to be taken out. It's kind of like, it's a great message. And also I think what those two movies do really well is showing how magicians think and how far magicians will go to get the trick to work.
Yeah, that's it, because they're both chasing the impossible trick. They're both chasing like an impossible even concept. In both movies, they're actually quite similar. The movies in kind of even scripting, if you think about it. If you watch them back to back, they're nearly quite, they're not spot on, but I mean they're the same kind of genre, the same kind of feel. And it is funny, like Hollywood kind of would do the same thing at the same time. It's but obviously they were kind of playing off each other. Whatever two studios were playing off each other at the time. Yeah,
magic was big at the time as well. Like, it was making a resurgence in pop culture, so it was like people trying to capitalize on it with these good stories. And my favorite scene, I think, in The Illusionist is the one where he does the sword and the stone, and he has the sword and it's standing there and nobody can pick it up, and then the leader who owns the sword walks up and goes to pick it up, and he just gives Edward Norton's character that look of being like, you better make me be able to pick up this sword. You better not make a fool of me or I'll kill you. It was really really good.
Well, I mean, the consultants that they have for these movies are definitely magic historians, because there's elements of Robert Houdin there with the orange tree, and there's lots of and Thurston, I think, as well, with that sword and the stone premise, or the light heavy box or something like that, would all have been of that era. Which is kind of cool. So I mean, they are very accurate with what they're trying to portray in the movie, for obviously because they know magicians are going to watch it and then they want to see how accurate it is.
Because there was the situation where he makes like ghosts appear on stage, and some magicians used to do that around that time as well, even in like more modern time. And then he went to that technology is still in use. If you ever go to the haunted house in Disneyland, at one stage you see ghosts waltzing with each other, and they're using the technology that magicians came up with to make projections appear on stage, to make ghosts appear. Like, they're still using that exact method today, because it's just how there's no better way to do it.
Ghost.
It's such a good thing. So if you ever want to see that trick done in real life, because no magician's really doing it, go to Disneyland. And if Disneyland wants to sponsor us for saying that, they could hit us up.
They use it. It's the haunted manor, isn't it? Or the mansion?
The haunted house or the haunted mansion, I think.
Yeah, it's the ballroom scene, I think. But I mean, it's such a great concept, and it's still. I mean, I think they use it as well for some of the concerts where they're trying to do, the hologram concerts of like past rock stars and like Michael Jackson and things. I think they did it
with Tupac and stuff. I think they use it as well they use something similar to bring the Gorillaz, when they performed live on stage at an award ceremony before, because they were just animated characters. They used similar technology to make them project onto the stage.
Yeah, I would imagine when it first, was kind of conceived as an idea, as the Pepper's Ghost, and they knew that it would freak out the audience at that time, because they were uneducated to that technology. But even to use it now, probably 100 years on, and still use the same premise to entertain people again. It's amazing what some of these magicians and illusionists kind of dreamed up, and it's like that. It's just a silly little idea, and it becomes this masterpiece,
Because you see it as well, even in the Prestige, going back to that, when he goes to Tesla to try and get a device to do a trick, And it shows that, like, back in that time, magicians were the highest paid performers in the world back in the early 1900s. So they used to go to the greatest inventors at the time to have them invent stuff for their shows. And a lot of technology that is used was developed by magicians because they were always like one step ahead. So, like, imagine before televisions were invented, it would be magic. Like, me personally, I still don't know how my TV works. I just think it's magic. Yeah, all that sort of stuff. Myself, because I was talking recently about if you went back in time, could you like invent something and be amazing? And I was like, I couldn't even invent a phone. I have no idea how even I can do like a can and a string. Maybe that's about it.
Yeah, we should have a can and a string for this.
Yeah, stick it behind the screen. I'm like, yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, it totally works. It's a really long string. But that's another one. So I mean, I think definitely if people haven't seen The Prestige, definitely go watch Prestige. But give The Illusionist a chance as well. It's definitely a great movie. And Edward Norton, like that, there is essence of that kind of Fight Club kind of character and that kind of trippy moments and stuff within The Illusionist as well. So
he plays because the character's a bit broken. He plays that sort of character so well that it's a I think. And to take another magic movie that I love, and anybody I know who is a magician or who knows magicians love this movie, but everybody else who have ever talked about it doesn't get it in any way, shape, or form. And that is The Incredible Burt Wonderstone.
Oh yeah, that's a great movie. It's a classic movie.
Its reviews are absolutely shocking, but if you know anything about the magic community or anything like that, it is the most accurate magic movie ever made.
That's right.
Because it's Jim Carrey and Steve Carell play two rival magicians similar to The Prestige, where one is more of a traditional David Copperfield-esque performer, and then Jim Carrey is very much a Chris Angel, David Blaine style person who does endurance stunts and things like that. And I remember there was the scene where Steve Carell's partner, Steve Buscemi's character, was doing charity, and he was giving magic kits to starving children for charity, and he gave them a dove, and they were like, dinner, ran away. It's just like,
it's a great movie, and you can see as well that it got so much influence from magicians because all the gags, all the jokes in it are tailor-made at the magic community. You know, it's a bit like the movie The Magicians as well, with the guys from the Peep Show.
Yes.
The British one. That is all the characteristics of like.
David Mitchell is very good in that one. Actually, it's because when you see like the inner workings and you see like what I love as well, and like there's a scene in Burt Wonderstone where him and his assistant are in the box and there's like swords being shoved through it, and they're just casually talking like.
Moving their head.
What do you want to go for dinner later? And you're like, yeah that is how it is. Because people always think when you're on stage it must be amazing. But even when I talk to like people who have done theatre shows, or even I was watching an interview with the cast of Hamilton and stuff like that recently, and they're talking about that, like when you're doing it like your 100th time, you go off, say, when you're not seeing, you might be checking your phone, or like, oh, I know there's only 10 minutes left in the show, so I'm going to order some takeaway, so it'll be here by the time the show is over. And it's like, it just becomes a bit of a routine. But to see that was amazing.
Yeah, just mention that. I know the scene you're talking about. I love the something happens with the assistant, and then his PA is just standing there. And as the assistant walks off stage, you just pull off her wig and put it on the other girl because it's just so interchangeable. The show must go on. It doesn't matter who's filling in the slot. Like it's a great movie though. There's loads of, and that kind of cocky arrogance that Steve Carell plays as the best illusionist, or the originally was the best illusionist in Vegas, is just brilliant. And then to see his kind of downfall throughout the movie, it's very funny.
When they did the glass box thing, when they were it was kind of like what David Blaine did in London. We were doing the glass box, but they were doing it in Vegas, so it became like an oven, and they were like melting inside this box with no air. It's like they were only in there for 10 minutes.
No, it's a great movie, definitely. And I was actually I was digging out actually old school as it can be, actually DVD. What? Look at that. Look at that shit. But look, but it's
at least it's not VHS.
It's not VHS, but it's the original this wasn't the original, but this is the original movie from 1953, Houdini with Tony Curtis. And I can remember watching
DVDs in 1953.
They did, yeah, especially this one. Just this one.
Yeah,
But
that's
the
what I'm talking about.
movie,
Magicians are ahead of their time.
yeah, that's it. You can't float. That's the best you can do. But 1953, yeah, Tony Curtis. I remember watching this at like Christmas time with my dad, and just being like, it was the first time I ever saw a Straitjacket was this movie. And it's just a great movie, and it has that really nice, family kind of movie to it. It's the story of Houdini, like right to the end of his life, but it has all the it's just a good kind of family, kind of rainy day Sunday movie kind of a thing.
Yeah,
But
I need to take that out and watch it. Actually, I need to see if I can find it online somewhere because it's been too long.
But I remember having to order this from the States because I couldn't get it anywhere in Europe at the time, and I just wanted actually like a hard copy. I mean, yeah, you'll find it online in places. But there's a great scene where he gets challenged to do a straitjacket escape, and it's a real slow motion scene type thing, and it's way before its time for 1953. It's just a good thing, and you can see the panic on his face and everything as it goes through. But the pretty much just it's a very accurate story of his actual life. I mean, from start to end. Definitely worth checking out.
Do you have the one actually you showed me earlier of the more modern Houdini series? Yes, that one. That's a great series actually if nobody's seen it, because I loved the bit with Rasputin in that show. Actually, it's great, making the bell ring, which is a true story. But it's
they touched on to the whole. Adrian Brody actually, by the way, plays a fantastic Houdini, spot on.
Oh, he does. Yeah,
his characteristics, and he had to actually learn some magic and stuff through it. I watched a documentary about it, but it's very accurate. To be fair, most of the effects that he did in it are ones that Houdini would have done or would be documented in books and stuff like that. I know it's very shiny. We'll go that way.
Yeah,
but it's not actually upside down. Houdini's upside down. So there you go. We talk about his water torture style, and anything that if you just have an interest in Houdini or escapes or magic of that era, definitely check it out. It's a two-part kind of. It's a movie, but it's a two-part kind of series type thing.
I think it shows really well in that as well, how much he'll keep performing no matter how much pain he's in, which is one of the reasons why he ended up dying so young, was because of his appendix burst, but he said he had to go back on stage. So it's
you can get a little bit of a feel for the man behind the myth as well. There's a bit more of his kind of. It's a lot of it is fictional. You can tell, but I mean, they kind of try to spread it out that he's not just a guy escaping from stuff. You see a little bit about the connection he had with his mother and his own connection with his wife and all this kind of stuff. So you can see him more for the man instead of just being the magician. So yeah, no, really, really well done. I think it was produced by the History Channel actually. Yeah, it was produced by the History Channel, but Channel 4. It was originally on Channel 4.
I think it still might be on All 4 somewhere, the app, if you can get it.
Yeah, it's about 3 hours long, give or take.
Yeah, and the other movie I was just thinking there, which Keith Barry consulted on, is the Now You See Me ones, which are very good. I prefer the first one to the second one, but I just think the twist in that, again, all about the twist, is very good. And again, there's hints throughout it.
You can't have a magic movie without a hook. It has to be a big, long trick at some point. It has to catch the audience off guard. I mean, obviously, with the Houdini story, if you know his story, well, then you know the movie. It's like the Titanic. I wonder what happens, But if you know the story of Houdini, that's what those movies are. But yeah, definitely. Now You See Me, the first one is really good. That kind of, and I love that. Any movie with a good twist at the end is always going to draw you in, and it's going to make you want to watch it more than once as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like Ocean's 11 meets Magicians, and it's like because even like in Ocean's 11, you see people do card tricks and stuff because it's just good for dexterity, especially the pickpocket characters. So like it's great, and it's interesting seeing in the sequel Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter himself, playing someone who really likes magic, is very good in the sequel too.
Well, even what we do, when we're kind of like describing a stunt or working with a stunt crew or whatever, and we nearly always explain it with a deck of cards. But like, okay, so you're the 8 of hearts, and you're over here, and you're whatever, and it is like working out like a heist at times, when you're trying to do that. And I think they portray that quite well. But obviously, with Keith and Blake Voigt and even Copperfield as a consultant, it's fairly accurate for what modern day magic is.
Especially, I thought Woody Harrelson played the great character who I think Keith was working with more closely as the mentalist character, and how they use his skills to be able to get people's like bank security questions and that sort of stuff is very good. Like it works really well.
First movie where he has the opening scene where he's hypnotizing the woman not to be able to speak, and he's reading the guy's mind, and he's like, "Who's Cindy? Who's he's in all these names. And he's like, her sister. So good. And then he just hustles him for like $100 or something, not to tell the wife. It's a good movie though. But I mean, they all have their part to play in it. You know, I mean, for anyone that it's a group of magicians that are trying to do this kind of a scam kind of thing. So yeah, I don't want to ruin it for people. I know some people haven't seen it because one of those ones as well that kind of maybe got undershadowed because it came out obviously in the summertime and things.
Yeah, which one do you think out of the ones we've listed, if you had to watch one of them, what one would you watch?
I think The Prestige.
Same, yeah.
I think it is The Prestige because I think it just draws you in and it does make you ask questions and you kind of don't know what to believe from the start. But it's a great movie. But I think it's got the most out of all of them. I think it's got the most longevity. Like you'll watch it more and more times.
Yeah, it's got really good rewatchability. Because I always think which we didn't really mention at the time, is that like the storytelling in itself, it jumps forward and back in time quite a lot, which makes it really hard for you to remember every bit of the plot. So even if you rewatch it the next day or like a couple of weeks later, the order of the events that the movie happens is always going to be different to what you remember because it's so edited out of time like that it's hard to actually recall, which again makes it more rewatchable even without the fact that you're just looking for hints for twists and stuff like that. And
Michael Caine is in it just being Michael Caine, which is always a good thing.
Who's also in Now You See Me.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, he's typecasted for magic movies now.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we'll leave talking about the things there. We're nearly on half an hour now at this stage.
Cut for the movies.
Yeah, that's it for the movies. And there's no questions coming in because we're not that interesting, I guess.
I was trying to work out some other magic movies, and I actually found a few other ones, so we might come back to that another time.
Yeah, it'd be good to talk about ones that because we touched on the ones that are pretty well known, but I'd say there's loads that people don't even think about that.
Did you ever hear one called Magic with Anthony Hopkins?
No.
That's a really old movie. Anthony Hopkins, it's like one of his early movies, and it's a weird movie, like when there's a ventriloquist doll in it and stuff. Very creepy, kind of just strange movie that you're kind of scratching your head for most of the movie. But that's another kind of that's a bonus movie for you to check out.
Yeah. But if anybody's watching as well who's got like suggestions for movies that like have magic in them, it doesn't need to be a completely magic movie, but maybe a character is a magician or something like that. Definitely comment it somewhere so we can go watch it because, as you're saying, we've nothing else to do with our evenings because we've got no gigs.
I had another bonus one as well, a movie called Willow, which is about like a kind of a Game of Thrones kind of a feel. Like there's like dwarves and warriors and knights, and there's a great scene in the opening scene of that where he does the flame through the arm illusion, and one of the main characters is kind of a wizard of sorts. So there's magic in it, but I know there was consultants and things involved in it at the time. I think Jim Henson had something to do with it as well. So it's that kind of like the Labyrinth. It's that kind of fantasy movie kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. And there's the short as well that I think Disney did it, where there's the magician and the rabbit with the teleporting hat.
Oh, Pixar did it. Yeah, Pixar.
Presto, I think it's called.
Yeah,
that's a very good. It's on Disney Plus. If anybody has Disney Plus, it's like 3 minutes long, but it's very good. I really like that. Cool. So will we talk about?
It'll just show you how popular magic is, though, and it becomes a pop culture thing, and they end up making movies and things about it. I heard rumors that they were making a Thurston movie with Johnny Depp, but
that would be great.
Yeah,
because there's so many more people from that era besides just Houdini, who people like, even like a Dunninger movie or something. I think would be very interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
And any of the other, a Di Vernon movie as well, I think, is something that should be made.
Yeah, and probably will at some point. I'm sure it's in the pipeline.
Yeah, and of course, just not forget there's the documentary about Richard Turner as well, which is just incredible to watch. He's a blind magician who's just probably one of the greatest card magicians of all time, and he can't see.
By far the best card mechanic ever. You know, just like what he can do is just beyond belief. And then when you realize that he didn't have sight, you know, now at all, but his sight was gradually going while he was learning this stuff. It becomes mind-blowing.
And he also became a black belt.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, even in that documentary.
He was on Penn and Teller Fool Us as well, so definitely check that out if you haven't seen it.
Absolutely. In that documentary, there's so many great like one-liners from him And you're just like, this guy has such a belief and in himself. It's just phenomenal. Even if you're not into magic or cards or karate or anything, just watch that movie just to hear of a man that like doesn't give up no matter what.
Yeah, it's very motivating. Makes me feel bad for giving up on like learning a certain sleight of hand moves that he mastered because I'm
Yeah,
just like,
yeah.
no, my pass is good enough. Go from there. So, will we move on to the good, the bad, and the ugly?
Sure, yeah.
The good, the bad, the ugly. So, I think we can go through. If we each pick one thing each from like recently enough, one thing that's good, one thing that's bad, and one thing that's ugly, and we can let what is ugly to people can be up for debate. It's completely up to you. So, do you want to go first with your feel good? What's something
Yeah,
good in magic you've seen?
definitely what I think is good in magic at the moment is the amount of people performing online. I mean, there are so many Zoom shows. Even Colin Cloud's Cyber Mentalist, he's
Yeah,
kicking that off at the moment, and it seems to be selling out. I think it's great to see magicians that, not just because they kind of felt like they had to, but because they want to. They wanted to adapt and get out there and still perform for people and show people what they were doing. I even know myself that I'm doing a lot more interviews and podcasts, and I was on Zucchini Magic in California and the Magic Forum this week as well. So it's great just to I think that's the best part of the COVID thing. If you can take anything good from it, that's definitely my good anyway, that people are just out there performing. And it's nice to see there's a real sense of community with it as well. Magicians are kind of talking to each other about different ideas and concepts and stuff. So, it's
yeah.
really
There's a
good.
lot of sharing going on with it.
Definitely. And
Yeah,
there's loads of different reviews for different stuff, and everyone's been very kind of generous and stuff. So no, that's definitely my good anyway at the moment.
yeah. Because it just shows a lot of innovation. Because people are looking at tricks that have been done for years and figuring out how they can do them via Zoom. Even things that I've seen people do tricks that I would never have thought would be possible to do to somebody at the other side of the planet. But people are coming up with ways of doing it, which is just incredible.
Yeah,
For me, I think my good would be something that you sent me a link to the other day, which was Eric Leclerc's Fool Us performance, because
brilliant.
that is just so good. I love his personality performing. I've watched him on TV many times, but I
Yeah,
think his Fool Us performance and that he's going to be teaching it on his YouTube channel as well, I think is really cool. That is like, he's like, I fooled them. It's a trick I'll never do again, so I'll tell everybody how to do it because it's a pain in
yeah.
the ass. But yeah, I'm
No,
looking forward
that's
to
really good.
seeing it.
I remember when I first heard about Eric Lear, he was part of another thing with loads of other magicians. I think with Jay Sankey. I think that's the first time I saw him. It was like Underground Jam or something like that. And then after that, he started doing a trick every day for a year
Yes,
on YouTube. And then I just started to hear more and more about him. But yeah, no, it's great. His personality fits his style of magic totally. He knows exactly what to perform and not what to perform and all that kind of stuff.
and
So
he's got the
yeah,
thing. He's very close to getting to 100 subscribers on YouTube. So if people can subscribe to his channel on YouTube, I'm sure it'd be very helpful
definitely. Yeah, and we'll
for
ask him.
him.
Maybe he'll pop on here and have a chat with us at some point.
Yeah, fingers crossed if we can get somebody. Okay, what's your the bad in Magic right now? And I'm
The
like, oh God, what's he going to say to piss off everybody who's watching and blacklist us
bad.
from every Magic convention in the world?
No, there actually isn't that much bad at the moment. I can see a whole lot of negative stuff. There's an awful lot of exposing going on, but I mean that's always the case because it's like those who can't do expose. That's literally it. So that would definitely be my bad. It's also my ugly. So there you go. But no, there is
Yeah,
there is more and more of that. There is more and more of that happening. But to be fair, it is a bit like when the mass magicians started exposing stuff years ago. What they're exposing, average, real professional magicians don't do those tricks anyway. So it really doesn't really matter. But I think the idea of kind of like breaking away the mystery out of magic and kind of forcing people to know the method, even though you may or may not want to know, I think that's kind of a bad thing, all right?
yeah, it is the bad because I know some people who like they follow Magic people on YouTube or Facebook and TikTok because they like watching Magic, but they don't ever want to learn how Magic's done. And like anytime, like I might let something slip that how a trick was done, like, oh, don't tell me, I don't want to know. So then they're following people, and because they're following Magic people, people who are doing exposures are getting into their suggested feed, and they're learning how to do tricks that they never wanted to learn how to do. But I have had people talk openly about going like, oh, sure, I know people, they do tricks where they turn over 2 cards when they're doing it. And I go, oh, yeah, I hate when the people do that. And then I just, like, I do it, and I still fool them. So, like, you know, it's all about, like, people, it's like, it's a little bit of knowledge, but you can still fool them with that same piece of knowledge as long as you change the presentation. Like, the key
Yeah.
card, I think, is a great example of that. Not to give away that, but there's a technique called the key card, which is in pretty much every beginner kids book, but I use it in my magician fooler because it's something that nobody does because they think everybody knows it. So when you do it in a slightly different way, people have no idea how it's done.
There's so many great moves like that are techniques that are underused because because you learn them early in your career, and then by the time you start being professional and start doing shows and stuff, then you're like, oh, I'm too good for that move now, kind of thing. And then that's the move that will fool you, because you'll get caught out with something that you learned very, very early on, and you'll have forgotten the concept. And it's actually funny now to see so many magicians kind of digging back into those effects to make them work for Zoom and make them work for their interactive shows and their online shows, because there's nothing wrong with those methods. Those methods are probably 100 years plus old. I mean, they will always work. They're always solid methods.
Yeah. You said that was also your ugly, but you have anything else that you would throw into your ugly?
Oh, my ugly. Not really, to be honest. No, I mean, there's not a whole lot happening at the moment, so there's no news in the magic front. I did see. It's not ugly though. I think it's a positive thing. I think Max Maven is judging a competition online to find like a social media magician type thing. I only saw a tiny bit of it, so I think it was Max.
Yeah, that's
Maven.
another good.
That's definitely a good. I think, and there's a prize, prize money and all that kind of stuff for it. I need to get more details on it though. It was literally a tiny little clip I saw. Do you have anything in the ugly side of things?
Probably my bank balance from buying too much magic stuff. I was literally going through some of my magic stuff, being like, I've just had boxes and boxes and boxes. Like, people talk about you've got your magic bottom drawer, and the people like, oh, this trick will never go into your bottom drawer. And I'm like, I've got like 12 bottom drawers full of magic. And as you were saying, now is the chance to start using, because some of the stuff looks great in a video, you buy it, you're like, this will never work in real life, and I don't really do video stuff, but now it's time to stop letting it gather dust and dig it out and be like, I can now do it on camera for people. And
that's just it. If it looked good in the trailer, that means it's going to look good, if you perform it in a Zoom show, or even just for your friends. I mean, that's definitely another part of the good thing, that you can just pop on and do a quick trick for your friend or somebody that might be at home on their own or whatever, and just kind of break up their day a little bit. You don't have to be doing live paid shows or whatever. If you're a magician, you should just be able to pop on and do it. My ugly as well, actually, is magicians calling themselves magicians when they're exposing magic. As soon as you expose anything, you've lost your title of being calling yourself a magician. If you teach magic, that's fine. The greatest magicians in the world teach magic, and that's fine. But yeah, absolutely. And we all had to, but I never watched really exposed magic to learn when I was starting off. You dig into the books and you read all the old books, but that's not exposure. That's study. So
especially when it's people teaching stuff that they don't have the rights to teach. Like, for people who don't know, there's a magic market, we say, where magicians who come up with, their job is they come up with tricks that they sell, and then magicians take them and adapt them for themselves. So they make a living selling tricks, and then there are people buying those tricks and then going online and being like, this trick that a guy is selling for 50 quid, here's how you do it. And like, you're hurting people, especially at the moment where a lot of these magicians can't do performances, so their only source of income is people buying tricks they're selling. So
people do forget that it is their livelihood. And I mean, there's loads of horror stories out there of magicians, and magicians, we don't need to list them who they are because people know who they are. But magicians that have been cut out by companies and cut out by people stealing ideas and other websites stealing concepts and things like that. It is a little bit like the Prestige, actually, if you think about it.
There's a lot of stealing goes on in the Prestige.
There can be a lot of cutthroat in this game, but I think if you say, I'm a TikTok magician or I'm an Instagram magician, but all you're doing is exposing other people's magic, then you've lost it. You're a kid doing tricks, and that's it. You're not a magician.
Not even doing them, you're exposing them, because the situation you have is, well, is that like community's gone through it. It's why I could just call it piracy. It's the equivalent of just paying for something, downloading it and uploading it to LimeWire. If that ages me,
LimeWire.
you like. buzzes up the LimeWire, people download it free. It's similar types of stuff, because you have to think about how hard it is to actually come up with a magic trick. You have to think about something impossible, and then figure out a way to do it.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and some concepts and some things
so like
use, some things we've used in our own working profession has been designed by a magician, and it may have taken 5 to 10 years of trial and error to get it perfect, that it's good enough to be a marketed item or whatever. But I mean, we can bring on some people like that. I'm sure they'd only love to talk about the way the industry is, and it's good to shine a light maybe on it, because half the time it's not really mentioned at all. It's one of those kind of, let's sweep it under the carpet and say nothing, you know. Yeah,
it's one thing I love actually in David Blaine's more recent specials. You see people like Azzy Wind and Daniel Garcia, who are his magic consultants, who a lot of the times magicians like hide their magic consultants away because they want to be like, I did everything, I came up with all this stuff myself, I'm amazing. When really there's 12 people behind the scenes being like, here's how you do this thing, go do it. Here's how you do this thing, go do it. And I think really like the way Blaine is like showing that it's not just him, it's a community of people who have come together, and then he is presenting their tricks, I think is a really good way of showing it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean that's the thing as well. I mean, even in my own career, I mean, I know there's some effects and things that I couldn't have done without your help and without like Morgan's help and things early on in my career, you know, with different things. Because you're either not knowledgeable enough to do it by yourself, or you think you can do it all by yourself. But the reality is, anyone that's you know on a high peak, I mean like Copperfield and now, they've all had consultants. But I do like the way that David Blaine is very open about, these are the guys that I work with. But you have to work with people that you trust. You can't be a one-man band, not in this game, you know. Even
just to shoot ideas off, like there was the time we come up with like ways for you to escape the caravan when you're up in Portrush, and we were up in your apartment with like chains and locks, lock picks, and like all this type of stuff, as we were like, oh, if you do this, maybe you could get to the lock this way. I was like, oh yeah, but then if I do this, actually, if we do it this way, it actually works better. And like trying to come up with something all by yourself is deadly hard. But like being able to bounce it off each other, suddenly you go in different ways, and everybody thinks differently. So
it's like if you were writing a script or something and you just give it to an editor or somebody to do like fresh eyes on it, you know, someone's going to look at it from a different point of view, or they might look at it from the audience's point of view and they'll be like, well, that won't work because of this and whatever. And then it's just knowledge is power, I guess, you know, where another thing I suppose with the kind of, you know, quick internet magic that's kind of out there now and kind of gone, you know, the real virus is that I think it's just spread like wildfire, especially when lockdown hit. You are looking at like a 15-second performance, and to be fair, that's all that those people performing are going to be able to do. They're never going to be on a live stage for 2 hours or anything like that, you know. So it's different for everyone, you know. I think there's a place for kind of everything, but we know and other people and professionals, you know, that you can't just put in a little bit of work here and there. You have to put in weeks, years, and of
it's
everything.
An obsession. Like if you're not obsessed with it, because I always hear like people go that they did magic as a kid and then they couldn't get rid of that itch. They tried to move on with their lives, but they couldn't, and they say they fell back into magic. But I always think that they got dragged by magic back into itself. It's kind of like, with the picture in my head is kind of like this black monster goo thing that like grabs you and like pulls you in and like takes over every part of your life. Like there's a thing, you've had it said to you, I've had it said to me, when you say you're a magician, people go, oh yeah, you look like a magician, and you're like, has it really taken over my life that much? Fair enough. I have magic. I have playing cards tattooed on me, so I guess that kind of makes I have literally the word magician tattooed on me, so that's something.
Yeah, it's definitely part of your life. I know it's kind of like that. It's like, yeah, you look like a magician. You're like, I'm sorry, you know, like this
is how I've always looked. It's like magic taking over.
Yeah,
that is the thing with magic now.
There was that thing for a while though, that everyone had obviously because Chris Ramsey and people like that are such influential people online, and kids coming up along. I mean, obviously we got inspired by people like David Blaine and things like that. And it subconsciously kind of gets into your system. But there was that kind of cloning thing that everyone kind of looked like Chris Ramsey for a little while. You're kind of like a hipster. You could be a barber. You know, it's just
that's still there. Like, I think the evolution of magic, just to like take a complete segue off of this, is that it was like the classical magician was the top hat and tails. Then it kind of like morphed into just like the suit with the like tie, maybe with cards on it or something. Maybe kind of like the Paul Daniels-y look, where you're kind of like just in a suit, but it's got a bit of a glitter to it or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it kind of went really stripped back to just like jeans and a t-shirt, Blaine style, and people started dressing a bit more cash, and they were like talking very Blaine like and that. And then Chris Angel came out, and everybody went. Chris Angel was like the first big rock magician with like the rings, the chains. He was kind of like hip hop / rock, long haired guy, almost like the death metal magician. And like you see loads of people who are in that style, because I think like rock and magic kind of go together. But then you see Darren come out with like the tweed suits and the waistcoats and that sort of stuff. And now I think if you see like me included, most mentalists now who are on stage look like Darren Brown. That's just like the style of what people wear now.
Yeah, it's true, I suppose. But I mean, then you'd see people that like David Blaine will do in effect, not like Darren, but he'll do it in his style. It's all down to your own persona, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't really change my style to fit my magic. I try to just make them meld together as one thing. You know, but
I think it is the situation of that, like, magic is a hobby of a certain type of person, and it's like a lot of it's like shy kids. And it's a way to break the ice. That's like the cliche magic thing. The shy kid sitting in his room learning magic tricks. And then it's like a lot of those people will probably listen to a lot of like heavy metal or rock or like that style of music. Maybe in the old days it'd be like the grunge style of music, because that like fits with the lifestyle of being a magician. And then as people grow up, they become like a bit more like into the hipster style. Like nowadays a magician is someone who like wears skinny ripped jeans and has loads of tattoos and maybe a fedora. Like that's what a magician looks like, you know. Well,
I love to think the idea of like, I mean, even with Houdini with the mirror cuff challenge and all those things where everyone was trying to kind of expose him or trying to be him, and escape artists started just appearing left, right, and center around his era. It's the exact same, you know. They're around maybe 20 plus years ago, everyone was like Blaine, and then I suppose it was a generation of like kids like Dynamo, you know, and that kind of more street look and things. I kind of just do your own thing, and it'll just fit. It'll either fit or it'll be, you know, a complete
you can see it as well. Like if you want to see the evolution of magicians over the last 100 years, you can see it today at a magic convention. If there's like a magician who's like the more modern magician, we say maybe like someone who dresses like us, Chris Ramsey, or like if D. Christopher or someone like that was performing, and then Morgan and West are also performing, and then you can see Morgan and West is how magicians used to dress in like the 1920s around Houdini's time, and then you can see the modern. So you can see the evolution. It'd be cool to see like 100-year challenge of like what magicians looked like 100 years ago to what they look like now. It'd be very contrasting.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool concept, actually.
Yeah, the complete segue off the good, the bad, and the ugly, but you know. That's what it's about.
Lovely, but there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of funny when I don't know, did you see any of that Tiger King show or whatever? But I saw a bit of it because lockdown, and the fact that he, like, I was watching it with my girlfriend, and then she just turned to me and goes, "And he's a magician."
Yeah. Oh, anytime I see something, whether you're watching like any show like that where you see someone who's a bit odd, or you see like you'll be watching Britain's Got Talent or America's Got Talent, and you see somebody standing there and they're like wearing like tails that like glitter and like shiny and stuff. And I always turn to my wife and I'm just like, please don't be a magician. Please don't be a magician.
Yeah. You're making everyone look bad. Yeah.
They're doing all like the dad jokes and stuff behind the scenes. You're just like, please. And then they come out and produce a bouquet of flowers and it's like, no.
Yeah, but each to their own too. But I mean, I mean, like, God help them. You know what I mean? That's all I can say, because they're trying to hide behind the sparkly card tie or whatever.
You see that though in like
I can't relate to it because it was never me. Do you know what I mean? But it doesn't mean
Yeah.
that it's wrong. If that's just sort of magician you are, that's fine. But it just wouldn't fit what I do.
Yeah, I saw the thing for long, like before, like 10 years ago when those talent shows started. Anytime a magician walked out on stage, everybody rolled their eyes. And now, like with Shin Lim and Colin Cloud and like David Penn and Britain's Got Talent got the furthest. He was the first person to get to the semi-final doing magic, and it shows
Yeah.
now like that, like magicians are like the favorites to win pretty much every year now, and it shows that like the quality of the people auditioning, number one, and also just of the magic community in general has gone through the roof.
That's great for the whole industry, though. You know, the more magic on TV, the more likely you're going to get booked for different events and different things and different, so
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
always good. When magic is thriving, even when the Now You See Me movies came out, it's on the tip of the tongue when they're watching Shim Lim and they see him on the weekends, and then people are talking about, did you see what he did, kind of a thing. That's all positives for magic, 110%.
You see it at your gig as well. It's whoever people compare you to. Like when I started off, it's like, oh my God, you like David Blaine, or like, oh my God, you like Darren Brown. And then it was like, oh my God, you like Dynamo. And now it's like, oh my God, you're like Shin Lim. And like, so it's whoever is big at the time is the guy that you guys compare it to when you're doing a gig or you're in a pub doing magic or something.
Yeah. I used to get, do you know David Blaine? It wasn't like you're like him. Do you know David Blaine? I'm like, oh yeah, me and David are that man.
Oh yeah. I'll ring him there one sec. Oh, no answer. Sorry.
Saying that, I mean, like we've met David Blaine and we've met a lot of industry magicians. Like on top of their game, and it is one of those industries that I think it's much easier to meet people that are high-ranking guys. Like, I mean, if you're in a rock band, it's going to be really hard to kind of bump into Metallica. You know what I mean? Or meet.
They actually they show up to the conventions, and if you were to go through like it is the whole 6 degrees of separation thing in the world, where you're meant to only be 6 people away from anybody else in the world. And I think in the magic community, it's like a 2-step thing. That like you could name like David Copperfield, David Blaine, Chris Angel, any of them. I'd say either I am friends with someone who has worked with them, or I'm friends with someone who is friends with someone who's worked with them, and that's there's no more than that many steps, because it's a tight-knit community.
Even like Morgan Stripper, I mean, he's consulted for me and he's consulted for Blaine and stuff like that. So I mean, there's only 1 degree there, So it's mad. It really is mad. But I love that about it. I mean, it's such a vast thing, but the community is actually really small. But I mean, there's always a top tier. There's thousands of magicians, but there's only like a kind of a select few that are the real, the guys that kind of shine through all the time and can kind of reinvent themselves and all that kind of stuff. And that keeps it relevant. I mean, even Blaine's new live show, I mean, no disrespect to him, but I didn't know what to expect when he said he was doing a live tour. I mean, I always saw him as a street magician and just a phenomenal kind of artist. Close up, and just that endurance artist stuff. I mean, I've always been fascinated by all of that, but I was like, how is this going to play on stage? But by far, it was like one of the best live performances I saw.
It was incredible. It was really incredible show. And As You Wind as well performed at that show and did an amazing routine. I really liked that. I thought it was great. And then I was just thinking there that I remember, speaking of how close the magic community was, I used to watch David Stone DVDs like a lot. And then it was actually the first time we met about 12 years ago now, because I was just 18. David Stone was doing a workshop in Cork that you were down at. And I remember I was just standing in the lobby of the hotel where it was on, and David Stone walked in, and like my reaction to seeing David Stone was the majority of people's reaction to seeing like Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt walking to the room. I'm like, that guy's on TV, like just my TV, because I buy his DVDs, but like, oh my God.
But still he was on TV. But I suppose that's just it. When you're watching magic and trying to study it or reading people's books, it's probably like the same as like meeting the author of a book that you love or something like that, because it's not that you're just like watching it passively like a movie like we were talking earlier. It's like you're studying this, and then you get to meet the person, and you try to figure out is it going to be the same, or but it's like anything. You go to lectures at these magic conventions and you learn whatever he's kind of willing to teach, but you chat to him at the bar or you chat to him later on for a coffee or whatever. And then you get the kind of the real work, and you kind of figure out who the person is, and then it all kind of makes sense. You kind of know why that type of magic suits that type of person, and then you kind of you get a more rounded picture. Like when we met Wayne Houchin and things like that.
Yeah.
All his magic suits him. You mean you'd know that he created it for himself, and
Yeah,
then
100%.
product. If other magicians like it, they'll consider buying it or whatever. But you can tell that the magic that he does is what he likes to do.
Because there is definitely like a celebrity list. Because I'd be talking to someone, I'd be like, oh, like there's this famous magician, and then I say the name, and they're like, who? And I'm like, well, he's famous among magicians. We'll leave it like the magicians who like the general public have no idea who they are, who are the like to us if we saw them would be like, oh my god, you're a god among men, like It's just it's such a different world that it is like Alice in Wonderland when you go through the hole, there's no going back.
Yeah, wasn't it David Blaine that said that you don't get into magic, that magic gets into you?
Yeah,
and
100%.
That's fairly spot on, because you're looking at two lads in their 30s that are just that have made this their career.
I'm in my 30s now. Jesus.
Yeah, I could tell, man. I could tell.
But yeah, I also remember that a story that Teller used to sell, that he'd be in a cafe or something, and he'd have he'd have a paper cup and a napkin, and he'd be sitting there, and anybody watching him would see a man take a paper ball, put it on the table, put a cup over the top of it, lift up the cup and take out the paper ball. But what he was actually doing was pretending to put the ball under the cup, stealing it away, putting the cup down, lifting up the cup and lowering the ball back in. So it's kind of reverse magic, that he's doing sleight of hand to make something look real rather than making the impossible happen. And it was his way of practicing. And I find myself doing that sort of stuff all the time. Like even if I'm in the cinema eating popcorn, I'm doing sleight of hand, pretending to eat popcorn, even though nobody can see me. I'm not performing for anybody, but it's muscle memory, and it's like I learned this, and now I just can't not do it. It's a complete obsession, and it's the only way you will be able to learn to do it.
Yeah, but we know that Ring is a paid actor.
I don't know. Well, people always ask me when I do this, which I don't understand, is the ring's magnetic.
Yeah.
And the only way I can make sense of that is if I replace all my fingertips with metal bars.
Yeah, but
then the ring being magnetic. And I know we go through a lot to get a trick done, especially if you know the prestige, maybe.
Yeah.
But Blaine would do it. Blaine would probably do that, but I'll just put in the 6 months of practice.
Yeah, it's a great effect though, and it's one of those things you can just do. It's like a coin roll or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's actually weird. The coin roll, I was telling you about that consultancy stuff that I was doing for that TV show, and that's what they wanted me to teach was as a coin roll. I can talk a little bit about it now, because it's starting to wrap up. But yeah, I had to teach an actress how to do the coin roll because they needed it for a couple of scenes, and then I helped them design the coin as well that they used for a TV show called Foundation, and yeah, I mean, it was funny that they wanted, out of all the kind of magic or flourishy kind of things, they wanted that traditional coin roll, So it's kind of cool how some things kind of cross between different genres of time and everything, that it's still considered, that's a kind of a cool thing that'll be visual on camera.
Yeah, it's like you see is actually I learned how to do the coin roll or the ring after watching The Prestige, which is actually a bit of a coincidence. It was the one of the magicians, I think it was Christian Bale's character, was lying in bed with Scarlett Johansson, and his hand was there and he was doing the ring roll, and I just loved how it looked. So I didn't bother looking up any books on how to do it. I just watched that scene over and over again until I figured out that it's very similar to the ring or the coin roll down the hand. So I just practiced it over and over and over again until I could.
Just for the record, you're stating that you watch a scene of Christian Bale and Scarlett Johansson in bed over and over and over and over and over again, so you could learn a coin roll.
Damn right.
There you go. You heard that here first, people.
And there's not. Yeah, at least that's what I told my wife.
Yeah, I'm practicing. Now get out.
Yeah. I'm just practicing magic, I promise.
But yeah, I mean, there's such great. I mean, there's even coin rolls and things like that in kind of gangster movies. You always see it and things like that, And even actually, I was watching the original Batman there recently, and Jack Nicholson does the Around the World with the card for the round thing. like that.
I just started doing that myself one day without really thinking about it.
Yeah, you just run around with the thumb and bring it around. But he does it, and then it stops. The scene stops, and it's like a jack of spades or something tilted to one side. And it just looks great, it's just an iconic little moment. And actually, a little trivial fact for you: he does the exact same move with the deck of cards in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So it was obviously something he could do, and the director went, "Oh yeah, do that thing with the deck of cards if you can do it, or whatever." And he just put it into both movies.
Because I remember I was doing it one day, and then I rewatched the Batman movie, and I was like, "Oh my god, the Joker is doing like the thing I do." Because I just started doing it to practice.
You were like proficient with deck cards. You just put your thumb, you just push it around, and then your first finger just brings it around, and that's it. It's a very simple. You can be doing it when you're just chatting to people. Spin it around. It's really easy though. You just thumb, push it around.
Exposing stuff on the podcast after just talking. That's the closer to my show, and now everybody's going to be able to do it.
There's the closer to your show.
I was going to do that in Britain's Got Talent next year, like.
Yeah, well, that's not exposing. That's just a flourish.
Exposing a flourish. So we'll just hydrate up a little bit.
Will we tease
we've officially been going for over an hour.
Cool. Will we tease some of the people hopefully that we'll have on in the next little while, or will we wait?
No, give a few hints.
Okay, well, there's no hint needed. We're definitely gonna have Morgan Strepler on. We were talking to Morgan already, and he's all for it, and he wants to talk about some of his new projects, and there's some amazing stuff coming in the pipeline.
Oh, it's gonna be anything Morgan releases is a must get.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's going to be developing new stuff as well. So yeah, we'll tell you a bit more about that, and we'll let him tell about it because it's going to be better coming from him. And I was talking to Will Roberts again, and I was on the Zucchini Magic with him the other night, and he's definitely going to pop on. And for anyone who doesn't know Will, he does magic and he does stunt movie work. He's a stuntman. He's a professional cowboy. He does all the gunslinging stuff, and even some of his stuff just on YouTube is amazing. He's also like a commercial actor and a movie actor as well. And he was quite jealous apparently because I've got an accent that he'd have to work at if he got work in Hollywood. He said you can't get
weird
work.
He was on with that saying that like, oh my god, it's amazing that you've got an accent, and like to us he's got an accent.
Yeah, exactly. And Irish people always think an American accent is cooler, but the Irish he was saying you can't get work in Hollywood unless you can do an English or an Irish accent.
Benedict Cumberbatch and Michael Fassbender take everything.
Yeah, that's it. And Colin Farrell and everyone else. So that would definitely have Morgan. And so we'll just tip Morgan for now and Will. But there is a few, and I touched base with a few really big names in Magic, and I've gotten sure, maybe and whatever. So let's see how that goes.
Yeah, and if people have any suggestions who they think would be interesting to have come chat with us about Magic and their process and anything that they want to discuss, please comment down below or send us a message if you know anybody who'd be interested in being on the show, because we want to just have a chat. Like there are other Magic podcasts out there and stuff like that, but Joe, watch yours. But we want to like have something that'll just from a different perspective and a different angle. So that's kind of what we're doing. And on that, we've also opened up a store where we're designing some t-shirts and hoodies and stuff like that. I'll put it up there. So that's the URL, very nice and short. It's shop.spreadshirt.ie/magicians-gone-wild. If you're wondering what MGW stands for, it's Magicians Gone Wild. Just like normal things, but we don't do the wet t-shirt contests. Yes.
Dave does, but it's never on camera. I think, right?
Yeah, it depends. Like if we need to get more viewers, like the wet t-shirts might come out. But yeah, so it's shop.spreadshirt.ie/magicians gone wild. And we have some designs up there at the moment. There's some David P stuff that I have, some Steve Spade stuff that he has that we sell at our shows and stuff like that. And also we are also selling some designs like I'm Not a Kid's Magician, things like that. I thought they were sold out. You still have one for yourself.
My last one.
The last one. So if people want to start bidding, now we can get that. We've got Mentalist t-shirts. We've got all the best magicians are called Steve. The best magicians are called David. So if your name is David or Steve, there you go. I'm Not a Kid's Magician.
You need to send one to David Blaine, and I need to save one to Dynamo.
Yeah, and or my wife and Steve's girlfriend are also going to be coming up with designs. One of them is that I am a magician's greatest trick, so that's good as well. So it's good to have all of that stuff there. So that's shop.spreadshirt.ie/magicians-gone-wild, and we'll have different t-shirts and designs up there. So we've got some in the pipeline that are going to be magician humor, those sort of things that we're going to have up there. So the sort of stuff that random people on the street would look at you and not have a clue what you're talking about, but magicians will find funny, hopefully, if we can think of anything funny enough.
Just think like magician memes that were like, we're laughing our ass off, and everyone else is like, I don't get it. What?
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what we're going for. But
yeah.
I mean,
like you shall not pass is one that's going to be coming.
Yeah, exactly.
That sort of stuff.
And the fact that we're laughing at it, and no one else laughs at it, means that any magician will want that t-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. We're basically making clothes that we want, and if anybody else wants them, fair enough. But we're basically designing stuff that we're going to be wearing. Exactly. I've got some that I've ordered. Just postage stuff is going to be a while. So yeah, we're in future episodes. We're probably going to be wearing those things anyway. So if you want to be cool like us, that's
in inverted fucking commas.
Yeah, cool. So yeah. I think that'll do it for the first episode of the podcast. We've done 1 hour and 5 minutes. So I hope people enjoy it. If you can like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Comment down below, hit the subscribe button, and we really appreciate all help. And Steve's doing the 52 card pickup. Thanks so much, guys, and we will talk to you again in about 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See you.
End.